There, she's
Hello.
here. Finally, she's here.
I'm so
Psychopedia's gone
sorry.
live with Deborah Kerr.
I'm so sorry. My technical skills are terrible. So, I did it in the end. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I heard some of what was being talked about. Hello, Jennifer. I heard some of what Riz was actually saying. So carry on, Riz, and I'll jump in.
Well, Jenny made a really good point around the fact that the reason why her motivation went out the window was because she ended up having to look after 3 kids.
Yeah.
So I was just saying that's a really important point. When we're busy looking after other people, especially if we're living with them, or even not, but socially distant, but still have to look after someone, maybe they're not well or they're elderly or somebody needs extra support, our own self-care and the motivation to look after ourselves can get left in the background. And Jenny's also admitted that it was also a lack of her own self-discipline.
Well, I think we need to be careful there about, judging yourself with your own lack of self-discipline, because there's been an upheaval, and an upheaval means everything has changed, and the psyche needs to catch up with that change. I always liken it to like the Roadrunner, the cartoon Roadrunner, and he'll go beep beep, and he'll run so fast, and when he scoots to a halt, the cartoon kind of bounces a bit, and we kind of see Roadrunner catch up with itself, and I think the mind has to do that as well. So I think there's a lot of stuff on the media about, you can start baking cakes, and you can write a song, and you can knit that jumper, and you can do 100 burpees, and you can go and paint art and listen to music and do all those, learn a language. I mean, that is really hard when everything has been up, there's upheaval in one's own routine. So surely, having to be with other family members and change everything, it's enough for the mind to have to catch that up. So I think you really need to be careful, Jennifer, that you don't beat yourself up thinking, oh, I could be doing this and I could be doing that, because come on, it takes time to adjust to your new surroundings.
And there is this notion that we have got a lot more time on our hands. I mean, I don't know about you, Debbie, but I certainly don't have any more time. If anything, I think I have less time on my hands since lockdown than I did before. The amount of clients I've now got and the work and everything else. And even Sanj has even commented, she said she's finding that there's not enough time. The days are going so quick. The whole week is blending into one. I don't even know what day of the week it is. I'm having to, really double check and triple check my diary. Some days, they've blended into the rest of the week. It's actually quite stressful. It's quite stressful. And then trying to stay motivated with things other than what's got to be done is quite difficult.
I think you're right. And I think for me, it was about, I paid important attention to do less. Because like you say, there isn't enough time to do less.
Yeah.
And because
so that's your motivation. So that's your motivation. Your motivation is to do less.
It was to do less. I wasn't going to beat myself up thinking, oh, I could be doing all of this. In fact, I didn't open my post. I left it on the mat. I left the washing up. Despite having more time to be able to do it, I left the kitchen a little bit more untidy. And when I did my one-to-one work, I told myself that that's all I'm going to do, because that's where my skills lie. And I will just do the piece of work that's online, which was harder to get used to. It was a different form of energy. And as soon as I did that piece of work with that client, I did nothing. And a normal working day, I would fit in my admin, make that phone call, prepare my lunch, get whatever I'm going to have for my dinner. I really run a tight ship in ordinary times. But since the lockdown happened, I found I did less because I had, fun enough, as you were saying, Riz, less time. So I took that to do much more less. And I found I was able to be much more at peace, and by really slowing down, it was a way of taking care of myself. But of course, all what was going on in the media and the news was how much everybody was doing so much, baking cakes and having all these things to do. And I was looking aghast at the TV going, I'm not doing any of that. And then I would come back to myself and catch myself and think, and I'm pleased about that, because it was really important to me to do less.
So Sanja's commented, she said less pressure of work. So what do you mean by that, Sandy? If you can expand on that a little bit. I mean, I'm personally, I'm not feeling less pressure of work per se, but however much I do enjoy my work, but some people are finding that there is a lot of pressure to stay motivated with the quality of the work that they're doing, especially while they're isolating with family, children. I mean, I've had clients whose partners have gone out to work because they're key workers, and they're left at home looking after the children and still having to work and still having to do their therapy online. So it's quite difficult. So the motivation to just stay motivated to manage just the everyday tasks,
yes,
is quite difficult.
It's quite difficult. So I think that's, you know, when people are thrown into a different kind of busyness. But of course, there are an awful lot of people who really are struggling with the empty space because they were furloughed, or there really is nothing to do, and there are no small children. They are living on their own in a small apartment or a small flat. There's a huge amount of people that are sitting in this real raw nothing, and yet are still lacking motivation to kind of, you know, do anything pleasurable for themselves, even if it's just simply to read a book. That must be very difficult. But it's about really tuning into that and really trying to take care. So even trying to build momentum towards the motivation, people are putting themselves under pressure around just leaving it alone and allowing the fact that, you know, that momentum will come when it comes, rather than having to put some pressure that I have to be doing something. That's right.
So
Sangeeta's actually saying here one day, in total shutdown, one day she was working and then suddenly come to a sudden halt. What was that? And I keep putting off things that I need to do. And what I would say to that, Sangeeta, is make that okay. There are loads of things I still should be doing. Yes. And, you know, like I said earlier, I didn't even open my post. I just left it there 3 or 4 days, just left it. Didn't even open the envelope. I know what they are. They're bank statements. There's something you have to attend to. There were lots of things that I should be doing, and I did none of them. I could have done a whole heap of gardening. What did I do? Nothing. It's okay to be to that halt. And if you sit long enough in that nothing, something will come out of it, because naturally
creativity.
Nature abhors a vacuum. Something will come out of that. Even if it's trusting that you'll fall into a bit of, you know, anxiety or a little bit of depression, or a feeling that, you know what, I think I'll just pick up that book, or I'll just make something nice to eat. You know, just those really simple things. But sometimes we're so frightened of actually stopping, that because we feel awful, that we end up beating ourselves up. We should be doing something. What I'm saying is just leave it alone. Fall into that abyss and trust and see what happens.
Yeah, because the thing is, you know, we're all going through the collective trauma, and as we've discussed in our previous sessions, that, you know, it's bringing up profound grief of loss, panic over our livelihoods, what people are worried how they're going to get their next, you know, pay their next bill or settle their loans and things like that. And it makes it really hard for people to get motivated or to even begin to think creatively outside of their state, in a way.
Well, Sangeeta's actually saying she feels inadequate at others' achievements. You know, we've seen it all on the news. And this is what I'm trying, Sangeeta, about that, is that be careful. Sometimes we need a mental diet. And what I mean by that is come off your social media, turn off the TV, and stop looking and comparing and contrasting to what other people are doing with all this. It's on social media. Wait, hey, look how much I'm doing. That's enough to actually give yourself a mental beating up, because you're not up there. So a mental diet, turn off your social media, except when you're listening to us, of course, and turn off the TV and stop comparing.
You can only do what you're doing when you're doing it, you know, and it is an important time for reflection, really, and introspection. It's an opportunity to become bored, and through that boredom you will find some momentum. Stepso says, yeah, agreed, and it's not a competition who does the most and the best. Absolutely. Rachel says, however, I rejected the notion that I should be achieving. So that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So people think that when they come back out of lockdown and suddenly they find themselves in the school playground, the chatter will all be about, oh, so what did you do during lockdown? Oh, what, you know, how, you know, oh, I've learned this, or my kids learned that, and I did all this. I doubt it. I think what will happen in the chatter in the playground for a lot of people will be the pressure of having to stay motivated with trying to teach their children, being the teaching mothers that they've had to become. That's quite difficult to do. That will probably be a lot of the chatter that people will be offloading, really. The difficulty of trying to stay motivated with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But Rachel was saying just earlier in her message that she lacks motivation anyway, and she hardly worked over the winter, and just as lockdown came, it was supposed to ramp up her work. But, you know, I think when we're lacking motivation generally, and we're really making this kind of level of motivation in relation to lockdown, but when we're lacking in motivation generally, it may be more related to not really working in your own purpose, not really doing something you would love to do, and feeling forced and just being pushed out of that more natural zone, more creative zone. So what I would suggest, Rachel, is that you go away and think about, you know, is this job or whatever it's I'm supposed to be doing, is it really energizing me, or is it robbing me from my energy? Because when something robs you from your energy, there's nothing more than a little dampener on energy, and therefore you just don't want to do it. So
well, the other, yeah, absolutely, you're right about that, because the other thing is important to note while we are in this isolated state is to find out where we operate best. Where are we most in our element? Being able
nothing.
yeah, I'm most in my element when I'm just chilling and watching a bit of Netflix or something. But it is important to just to introspect that, you know, where have I found that I'm most in my element? Have I actually found that being on my own and or being less busy, being out in the world, I'm more in my element, and I actually achieve more when I'm at home and I'm working online or something, which may help somebody to cultivate a business online, because suddenly they've realized that I'm actually more in my element now than I used to be if I was traveling or doing the commute or going into the office. So, you know, it's also allowing the motivation to be in your element.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there is a difference also between naturally introverted people and naturally extroverted people. And I think, like you and I, Riz, we're introverts. So maybe there's a part of us that's also found it easier to be much more introspective or to do less. And I think maybe with the lockdown with extrovert people, it's almost like so much energy in a nutshell. And they're just bouncing off the walls, trying to get out and needing to do something, needing to go for that run because that helps them. So that's fine. But I think there's just something about you know, being still and allowing oneself to be in a still space, or outwardly achieving nothing. To do nothing means that we're doing something, and that's really connecting more inwardly in much more than one's introverted nature, because that's really where one's intuition and the answers to one's purpose and really what they want to be doing in the world comes from, because intuition speaks in whispers, never loud noises. And most of us are so busy trying to fill our lives up with you know, things that we're dedicated to do and that we've committed to doing, that there's never been much time to actually really personally reflect. So that's one to really watch.
Yeah, and the thing is, you see, my heart goes out to those people that are trapped in small homes with a bunch of kids and a partner or not a partner, and you know the pressure of just having to stay motivated with trying to relate. It must be so difficult. Rachel says there was just little work available, so large gaps in time that she needed to fill. And Sani made a very important point again. Actually, she says, I think just living with uncertainty feels like hard work. So just trying to stay motivated with feeling so uncertain moment by moment.
Well, I think
And Rachel,
motivated means to move, doesn't it?
mm,
It's being able to move. So when there is that anxiety about, what's going to happen next and you need to be doing some stuff, I think it's about being motivated just to stay with oneself.
yeah.
Without, even if it means falling into a bit of depression, even if it means, I don't know what I should be doing for the next half an hour because, I've got that to do in a minute. So what do I do with this gap? And
Yeah,
nothing.
it's difficult. Rachel says, she said the dreaded should word. She said, I felt I should be filling my time better apart from some voluntary hobby stuff. So it's like you despite being in lockdown, you've still felt that you needed to be adding value to something. But she also says that I've been also busy looking inside before lockdown anyway. So that's really important. So really lockdown for her is a continuation, more or less, of her life as it was before. So, I think, again, it's important to look at motivation, not in just from a one-dimensional perspective. The fact that we should be doing X and Y and Z, the motivation is that we don't have to do anything. And who really gives?
Well, I think when we take the should, ought, or must, means there's an external pressure coming down what I call on the inner child to actually achieve something. And when we're not achieving something, like doing our 2 + 2 and our multiplications and our last spellings and learning our alphabet, there is a sense of guilt, should, ought, must, which means if our motivation is being driven,
well, if it's driven by the critical parent,
by a certain amount of guilt, what we're doing is giving our power away to some external force that says we should be doing something. And that's the deeper work, is trying to catch that feeling of guilt, because it doesn't feel like guilt. It feels like I should, and it feels like I ought, and it ultimately must. And if we didn't pay any attention to those three words, what would be the feeling? And it's likely to be guilt. And if we don't want to feel into the guilt, we may then feel depressed as a way of masking the guilt. And then we want to, in some way, beat ourselves up because, I should.
And what will that depression? Yeah, absolutely. And what will that depression look like? It will be food, trying to grab the first piece of food to fill that momentary guilt. It will be not wanting to wake up in the morning. It will be just wanting to just sit around. But that doesn't mean you're being lazy. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you're lacking discipline. Yeah. It just means that you're really fighting that voice in the head. That's the internalized critical parental voice that's feeding down into the child. That's telling them that they should be getting up, should be doing something. You have to do something. You cannot just sit around, and it's important to even maybe recognize what age that feels. Yeah, is it a really young age, or is it a teenage phase maybe? Because a lot of teenagers get that kind of talk from their parents. How come you've woken up at it's 12 o'clock? Half the day's gone. What the hell have you been doing? Well, why did you go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning? So, so we'll wake up giving ourselves all that bloody dialogue as well. Yeah. Sandra also says she's feeling anxious of how she will cope with work when things kick off again. And what about, her time then, which she enjoyed, because she's a hairdresser. So there will be a lot of anxiety around emerging from lockdown. What will the world be like? And she will be torn potentially around wanting to have that space and that isolation, in a way, that lockdown, because everyone else is locked down, and then having to go back out into the world and having to feel that we have to be on it again.
Well, what I would say to that, it's a bit like animals. I'm at the moment I'm fostering 2 cats, two very gorgeous cats that belong to Jenny, and they're indoor cats. So if I open up my outside doors, the cats are curious, and what they do is they kind of poke their head out and they kind of sniff the air, and then they step out cautiously, and then they kind of walk around the perimeter, and they kind of go, ooh, and when they get a bit scared, they run back in. And I think we'll do that with our minds. So Sangeeta, what's likely to happen when, you know, we're not suddenly going to go, whoosh, lockdown's over, let's all just go out and carry on pick up where we left off. I think there will be a slowness about it. I think there is anyway, because we're all going to have to learn to live with this anyway. But I think just be mindful with yourself to come out slowly. You don't have to suddenly just fall straight back in and lose everything that you've suddenly found for yourself, even if it does mean a little bit more time or a little bit more sociability through Zoom or finding a different kind of food to eat, etc., etc. You'll do it slowly, because the mind will. It'd be like, what's it like to be out there? What's it like to go on a bus again? What would it be like to get on the tube again? Some of you may already be doing that anyway. But when we haven't done something for a while, we will tend to come out slowly, just like animals will come out slowly out of their den when they're peeking out into the new spring or whatever it might be. We do it slowly. So give yourself a break. Don't get over anxious with it. It's going to be okay.
You know, we're designed to adapt. We're designed to adapt anyway. So just like we were thrown into isolation, we had to adapt. You know, we got into it pretty quick, but there was this momentum, I think, at the beginning. Oh, we'll all talk on Zoom every week, we'll all do this and we'll do that, and you know, I'm going to continue this and I'm going to do. I think there was this big rush and pressure to so wondering is the key word. I'm wondering how I'm going to manage in lockdown, and I think that momentum kind of love bombed us very quickly at the beginning, and then it kind of came crashing down to a degree where we suddenly realized that, hold on a minute, we cannot keep up with this. It is just kind of physically impossible. You know, I cannot keep posting, you know, look what I've cooked today and look what I've done, and I just actually don't have the time to connect with my friends online as much as I thought I would be able to. So you know, it's about regulating that, and now that's regulated. That lockdown feeling is regulated. People have got more into their stride with it now. Even though, what's it? Jenny says, she goes, she felt that she should get a lot more done, no Francie, while being in lockdown, but it feels that she only gets half the load done. And again, that's absolutely fine. Don't give yourself a hard time. I've got a whole basket full of laundry I've got to sort out. You know, who gives? I don't give a shit, you know. So it will get done. It will get done when I get round to being in the mood to do it.
Yeah, when you're in the mood to do it. And that's, I think you came on late, Francie. We did actually talk about, you know, about getting rid of the mental words of should, ought, must. And, you know, taking a little bit more of, I called it, you know, a mental diet, and stop watching the TV and looking at how well other people have achieved and what they've done, and how we should keep a routine, and how we should learn a, you know, a recital of some sort, or learn a language. You know, just dump all that idea. It's just a whole load of nonsense.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter, Jenny. It doesn't matter. You know, if you haven't done the press ups, the films, the books to read, if you haven't, don't worry about it. Maybe just focus on just one thing. Just one thing. Just try to stay motivated on one thing. And I can say, let's say, for example, one of my things that I'm trying to stay motivated on, just one thing, nothing else, don't give a shit about the rest, one thing, and that is just to make sure that I'm drinking my 2 liters of water a day. That's it. That's as much as I can get motivated, but I'm going to see how long I can keep that up. And if it doesn't mean I'm a failure. At least I tried.
But Jenny's actually saying here, you're right, and I think it's in relation to what Francie was saying, that all these challenges people post, you know, about their press and films and books to read, and she's done none of them. And you know what, quite frankly, Jenny, neither have I. You know, neither have I. So it's less is more. The less you do, the more quality of something deeper down in your intuition will reveal itself. And when you allow that to reveal itself, you'll be guided by that, what it is that you want to do. And it might actually, you know, be a new career. It actually might be, you know, it could be anything. We're all
going to emerge. We're all going to emerge like some kind of butterfly. You know, some of us are going to have more designs on ourselves than others, but we'll all be butterflies once we've come out of this, you know. So we're all going to have to fly and get into society somehow. But, you know, while you're in your cocoon, just enjoy it. Just be in your element, be in your mood, enjoy the children while you can, because before you know it, they're going to be grown up and they're going to be gone. So it is. It's very difficult not to have that pressure. Very difficult not to feel pressured by it. Francie says, how wonderfully everyone else's lockdown seems in their... Yeah, exactly. Everybody seems so relaxed in their post. Oh, look how we're doing this, and look how, you know, we're having a picnic. There may be moments where that happens, but I can tell you right now, it's not how it is 24 hours a day in their life. But you've got to see, you know, this social media only posts what they feel that you need to see. Stepso self-care, she says, I'm a teacher and I totally agree that it shouldn't be classed as a failure. We teach the children as long as you know you're doing your best. That's the main thing. Absolutely. So why do we as adults take it on board?
Because we live in the Western world. You know, we are hardwired and driven, and, you know, it's driven into us to be human doings and not human beings. And it's commercialism. It's about competition. It's about, you know, if I don't keep up with the Joneses, or if I don't keep up with my education, if I don't keep up with the, you know, whatever it is I need to do, I won't get promotion. So we're constantly in this level of competition, and we're trying to get higher and higher and higher and higher with it, and we're all burning out, and it is unsustainable. So yes, this has been a time now where we can think about, yes, I'm a human being, so why don't I be more rather than do more? Yeah. And
it's not always about productivity. I mean, life, you know, the ordinariness of life, there's enough to do productivity wise anyway. You know, just getting our basic needs met. If we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, just to manage those basic needs is, you know, we need just motivation to keep that going. So trying to build stuff on top of that when we don't have the inclination, or even the mindset, or the what's the word? I can't think of it right now. It's not going to happen. So we get into this trap that, you know, we're just not doing enough. We're not performing enough. We're not being productive enough. We're not being creative enough. And the pressure of that is really hard. Really hard. You know, so we nice. Are, again, you know, the people that are... Sorry, go on, Debbie.
I said it's very nice to be able to take the pressure off if you could only give yourself permission to do so. It's wonderful. Wonderful.
Well, Sanjita gave us a very lovely message. She said, thank you very much for both of you giving me the permission. Well, you're welcome, Sani. So that really tells you that, you know, there's a really strong internalized critical voice that puts a lot of pressure on you when you're by yourself, around needing to have to be more productive, or bring things that that you think should be of more value outside of yourself than yourself.
Absolutely. I think another destructive...
That's the compassion. That's the compassionate part of us, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And it's not compassion when we kind of have an internal word of laziness. I am being lazy because I'm not motivated to do this, that, and the other, and therefore I am this. That's a big one to watch.
So, you know, we have to work towards recognizing that all the subliminal messages around us about guilt tripping. It's all about guilt tripping.
Yeah, yeah. Guilt is about, you know, needing to perform in some way towards some external force that says we should or must be doing.
Yeah, whatever we are doing, or whoever we are, is not enough. Yes, you're absolutely right, Sanjita. It is about self-love, and this is what we were talking about. It's about compassion. It's about self-compassion. Yeah. Can you hear me, Debbie?
I can hear you. Yes, I think I got knocked off. I don't know if did you lose me? Something
No,
came
no, no.
over.
There was a bit of a whirring. I was wondering whether
Yeah,
the connection.
the
So
connection.
yeah, so Sanjita's talking about self-love. So do you want to say a bit more about that, Debbie?
Self-love. Well, two very simple words, aren't they, really? The self-love is really is having the relationship you have towards yourself. And Buddhism would actually say that all relationships are temporary. That all relationships are temporary. The only one that you will ever guarantee is the one that you have with yourself. So if you can have a relationship more this way, what I call, more vertical rather than horizontal, out that way with others, it really is about this internal self-love. And love is it's a very difficult word, love, isn't it? Because it's such a broad thing. But it really is about, different words you could use is about real self-care. Self-care is a form of love. Being more gentle with yourself, paying attention and tuning to what are my needs right now, or someone's requested that I join them on a Zoom party or do this and the other. Does this suit me right now to be able to do this? Can I say no? These are all the kind of ways in which we can love ourselves, is by simply finding a way to have an internal dialogue with yourself, an internal relationship with yourself, where you pay attention and respond appropriately towards
This is about
that what I call the vertical relationship with self.
Yeah. And it's about also going in and becoming aware of your personal values, your personal value system. So it's about recognizing when it comes to integrity, what are your personal values, the accountability, responsibility, all of these things are all about self-care. We cannot expect other people to have to share their personal values with us when we aren't aware of our own. So becoming aware of your own personal values, especially during this time, around letting things go, is going to be really important. It's going to be quite important to do that. So there was something else I was going to bring into it. Yeah, Sheldon Kopp, he's a very old psychotherapist, and he wrote some very, very good books. And he said the quote, the greatest war that is ever waged is within the self.
Yeah.
And you can forget all the wars that go on in the world and all the fighting and everything, but the greatest war that is ever waged is within oneself. And we can spend all our time looking outward and completely ignore the battle that goes on within. Mm-hmm. So it's really quite important.
Yeah, and I use a slightly different term, and when people talk about, it's being school children, they talk about being bullied at school, or we can be bullied at work, and there's all this bullying going on. What I actually say is the biggest bully that you will ever encounter is the voice in your own head. So again, if you kind of have that inner relationship with oneself and start tuning into that inner dialogue, and finding a way to negotiate all of that, that is a form of self-love. That is a form of living more compassionately. And if we can deal with those own inner demons, it won't matter if you've got a bullying boss. It won't matter whether you've got awful school friends. They just they won't mean very much to you. They can carry on being arrogant or being demanding or whatever it is, but it won't touch the sides, because you have somehow internally developed a much more compassionate relationship with self. It'd be like water off a duck's back. I'm not saying you still have to deal with the dynamics of all, but you'll find that you'll go through it more easily. So yes, the biggest wars are usually an internal war, and then all that gets projected out into the world, and then we ramp it up collectively, and then we kind of then start, like what's going on in the streets at the moment, with all the rampaging that's going on. We kind of whip up a storm and get into a war. So bring it back to self.
Yeah. So Rachel says, so reevaluation of what you do is another preoccupation for those who have no income or government support. Absolutely. This is about an introspection around the way that I'm trying to earn my money now, my income. Is this going to be conducive for me in the future? Because if the world has changed now, So how do I now change the way I work and operate, or earn my income? There must be an alternative way to maybe do that, so I'm not put into this position again. But we won't really know what that looks like until you go in and have that internal dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
How much of a victim of circumstance have you become? And how much of the victim of the circumstance, once you've emerged from lockdown, will become part of your identity?
I seem to be missing the messages aren't coming up on my screen, Riz, so I can't seem to sort of join in as to who is saying what.
Oh, okay, because Rachel said that we've frozen. Can anybody else just confirm whether we've frozen?
I see I've stopped at Jennifer. Very true, Francie. They're probably not true. That was a while ago and I've not had any message come through.
Okay, I'm going to remove you and let's see if I can put you on again, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, we're not frozen for Jazzy.
Hello.
Saj is okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jenny said that she was glitching slightly. Yeah, I know the feeling, Jenny. I'm always glitching.
Rachel frozen.
We're frozen for Rachel, but hopefully we'll come back. So yeah, so talking about that notion, Debbie, around emerging from lockdown, ending up as a victim of the circumstances that you were put into.
Well, I think again, I think as you said about, I don't know where we froze with people, but you were talking about the inner war, you know, the war that we have with ourselves. And I was talking about, you know, the biggest bully that we'll ever encounter is the voice in our own head. And we can turn into a kind of a victim mentality if we believe that we've got to be all things to all people or to all things to all situations. And I think that's one that we have to be really careful of. And the word motivation really means that I should or must. I should be doing this. I ought to be doing that. I must be doing that because everyone else is. And this is what is expected of me. And when I come out of lockdown, I'm going to have to be, you know, ramping up my energy and be back as on form as I was before. Those are huge pressures. Huge pressures, and we need to be careful not becoming a victim of that mentality. I wouldn't call it necessarily a victim of circumstances, but it's a victim of mentality.
Well, the circumstances, sorry, Debbie, what I mean by the circumstances is, you know, that people that have been put into a situation, find themselves in a situation where, you know, they don't know where they're going to, you know, start paying their mortgage, or when the income is going to come back, or how they're going to repay their loans. You know, they will feel that the circumstances surrounding lockdown have actually made them, they've become victims of it, you know. So when they emerge, how difficult is that going to be for them to gather themselves up and create that different mindset?
I think it's very hard to answer this one because these are real feelings and these are real issues and these are real concerns, and you know, lack of money and not being able to pay the mortgage, these are real things. They really are real. So, you know, this isn't about, you know, minimizing that in any way. But I think sometimes, you know, we're not so much in control as we think we are.
No, we're not.
And when all these things are actually happening, the only way that you can really survive that is to go right down the middle. Actually, just right down the middle. And that's actually where you kind of do nothing. There's nothing you can do about it. So there's just that something holding yourself very still in the center. And really the only other word that we can put to that is that, you know, is develop the faith. And I'm not saying you have to suddenly become religious. I'm not talking about that kind of faith, but I'm talking about, you know, faith is the evidence of things not seen. There's just something we kind of have to wait. We have to wait it out and have trust and faith that no matter what, it's going to be all right. And I say that even from my own personal experience, not during lockdown, but when I think over the last sort of 10, 15 or even 20 years, when I've had certain times in my life when it's been like real hair raising, you know, real change and shift happening in my life. And I look over the precipice and think, oh hell, what's going to happen now? And all the things I worried about did not materialize. It did not materialize. And what it did, it was just robbed me of my energy of the moment. And so I say that right now, that while things feel like they're really hair raising and an awful lot of change is happening, which it is, that we're going to come out the other side of it, and you're going to be okay for the better, despite how uncomfortable it feels.
Yeah.
In order for anything new to come into our lives, there has to be an element of chaos before it happens. And this is it big time. And I say big time because it's collectively. It's not just happening to me in my life 15 years ago. It's happening to all of us all at the same time. And this can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
It can only be a good thing.
So
does that answer your question, Riz? I mean, it was a bit of a long answer.
No.
It's a difficult question, because there are real things happening for people where there are real concerns. Yeah,
Jenny says it's the butterfly effect. Yes, absolutely. And the reality is we don't know. You know, we don't know how we're going to be when we come out of it collectively, and we don't know what life is going to bring us. So it is very much about robbing you of your moment. So if that in that moment you're not motivated to do anything about it, don't worry about it. You know, it just doesn't matter.
I think what it's done for me, and it's a personal disclosure really, rather than I suppose other people perhaps can feel into it whether it's true for them. You know, I think when we're all our busy lives and we're earning our salaries and we're striving to achieve and try to get that next sort of promotion or whatever it might be, and we work really hard, so we go out on a Friday night for dinner and we go out on a Saturday night and do this, and then we go to the theatre and we do that, you know. And actually what it's done for me is that I've not missed going out for dinner at all, and I'm a foodie. And I'm a real foodie. I like going to restaurants. It's one of my best pastimes, but I have not missed it. And what it's made me do is to really appreciate the simple stuff, the simple foods, the simple sort of, it's simple. I've you know what I'm like, Riz, on a Friday night. If we're in, it's like, this is not Friday night food. You know, don't give me a bowl of pasta on a Friday night. That's not Friday night food. It has to be, you know, I would say quite lobster every time, but it has to be a nice piece of something and really put well together. But now I don't even care if it's a bowl of soup.
So you've evaluated your meaning for things.
Yeah. And so the simple stuff I've become to appreciate and relax more into, and it's a lot simpler, a lot simpler.
So you're less motivated in creating this big fancy schmancy a la carte meal, but you've begun to value and be more motivated towards more simple, more fresh, more flavorful dishes in a way that doesn't have to be expensive per se, or they don't have to be overly fancy.
No,
I've not other things to do.
Cheese and apple.
Yeah,
cheese and apple. That's all I've been eating for lunch. I would never have eaten that in a million years ordinarily.
Yeah.
You know? But Rachel said she's not missed all the things to do either, and I think that's great. And I think we call that JOMO, don't we? That's the trendy term to put it.
The joy of missing out,
rather than the fear of missing out. And what's really lovely is that I feel that too. The real joy of missing out. I don't have to. I'm not under the same social pressure that everybody else is doing this over there, so therefore I've got to catch up, and if I miss that party it's going to be awful. No, well, there is no party, so this is great. And so there's a pressure off there, and I don't have to kind of conjure up the motivation to kind of, you know, get spruced up and go out.
Sanjita says she agrees. She goes, she's finding it exciting as her fridge begins to empty. Yeah, so you get motivated to get down to the shops to find like other things or other things that you might want to cook. And Rachel says she's so JOMO. If anything, what I have found is found the joy in recognizing that I'm not actually missing out on anything.
Right. Yeah.
I'm really not missing out on much, really, other than being in close proximity and close contact with my good friends and certain family members. But otherwise, I've actually experienced the joy of not missing out. So it's JONO from me. It's a JONO from me, the joy of not missing out.
But Sanjita puts here, it makes you feel that I can do it, you know, create a meal from nothing, literally.
Yeah.
And what
that's motivation, Sanjita.
That is motivation, and this simple stuff, which is really what I call doing nothing. I'm not even really making proper meals. I would normally make a curry, or I'll do a big roast. And actually I've enjoyed eating what's there.
Yeah.
I haven't thrown anything away. I eat all the food in my fridge. Well, normally before I chuck that and chuck this and chuck that, you know, and it really is a joy to do that. Jeremy Smith has joined rather late.
But it's all right, Jeremy. You've missed the chunk of all our good chatter. It's been really fantastic. But thank you for joining despite the late moment. So tell us, if you want, Jeremy, about your motivation. It seems like you've been motivated to do your garden, because when we were doing our rehearsals yesterday for our Instagram live today, which went better than what we did today, Jeremy was showing us his garden. So clearly Jeremy's been very motivated in getting his garden done.
It's gone.
So there's Jenny's cat.
There's Jenny's cat. This is Theo. So hi Jenny, here he is. There's your little putty cat. Here's Theo. Yes, they've been a joy, an absolute joy. See, cats, you know, they do exactly what they want to do, and they do exactly what they need as well. So I think we should take lessons from them.
Oh, that's Izzy's cat.
Izzy's cats, yeah. Izzy's cats, yeah. Izzy's cat. Yes, I know Jeremy. So yes, I've been aware that Jeremy's been very busy because he's a man with ants in his pants, and he's a doer and a fidgeter, and he'll fix it. And I'm motivated to watch your show as I have not received the curry.
Well, we're going to have to organise that, maybe even at a distance for you, just for you, Jeremy.
But Jeremy does always find something to do, whether it's tinkering in his shed, you know, fixing the window or mowing the lawn. But I think from the conversations I've had privately with Jeremy, he's been quite happy to just tinker about and not have to rush around. So it's just finding those little things. If you you know, if you've got the energy and you want to move. But what we've been saying is that if you haven't got the energy, then don't move.
Yeah, and it's okay. And it doesn't matter. Yeah, absolutely. Just be in your mood, be in your element, find your element. You know, when I reflect back in just before lockdown, to just imagine and recall how hectic and busy my life was, in, out, it was just shocking. And you know what, I don't want to go back to that. I just do not want to go back to that. No. So is anybody else worried about going back to the busyness of their life? Because that's not necessarily motivation, it's just the busyness of life. I'd rather be motivated in the sense of the pace of my life is going at the moment.
Well, I think maybe that we can bring that to a discussion another time, Riz, about, you know, as Sangeeta noted earlier, you know, what it will be like to come out of lockdown and what's going to be expected of all of us. And what I would say again, because we're going to need to bring this to a close very shortly, is remember to give yourself I called it a mental diet. You know, and this is all this social media stuff with everybody posting just how wonderful they've achieved things and what a great time they're having because they can now drink their champagne in the garden because they've got all this free time. And you know, please don't compare and contrast. Please do not compare and contrast. This is your life and theirs is theirs. And if they're doing their little bit of showing off, let them do their showing off. But I'm pretty sure in the dead of the night, they're probably dealing with the same demons as you are. Okay? So go easy on yourself.
Well done, Debs. Thanks for that. No, we haven't frozen Jenny. And I'm just wondering, Debs, whether to just check out with the people that have tuned in today. Whether they want to be rushed back into how fast-paced life was before. Yeah, that's what Francie said. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it will. And I think it's going to be a little bit like what Debbie said earlier, Francie, about the cats. You know, they'll go out and they'll have a little snoop around, a little thing around and see what's going on. And then they'll come back into the house. I think what's called our ambivalent attachment or our anxious attachment to the outer world will kick in. So we'll go out, delve a little bit, and then we'll come back. And it will be interesting to see how much we'll delve around and want to quickly rush back to our homes and back into cover again. So I think, you know, the pace of life, I think we may consider doing it more on our own terms from now on, because we know that we can, because it's been doable. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have more of a choice. It's as if before it didn't have a choice because everybody was at the same pace. But I think the whole world will be